The sun hovered low over the distant red mesas, bathing the dusty plains of Arizona in a golden glow. In the quiet hush of late afternoon, the wind whispered through the dry sagebrush and the tall cottonwoods near the dry creek bed, carrying with it the scent of dust and earth. Jake McAllister rode slowly along a narrow trail, his horse's hooves treading softly on the sandy soil. Jake was a lone rancher, drifting across the frontier in search of wide-open land and the promise of a fresh start. He had seen towns rise and fall, but he preferred the quiet emptiness where only wind and hawks and rattlesnakes kept company. Ahead, just beyond a clump of scrub, Jake spotted something that pulled him from his reverie. A young woman, bound. A girl, really, her arms tied behind a tree. Her hair was dark, hanging loose in wavy strands. Her clothes were tattered and stained. She was trembling. Her eyes flicked toward him, wide with fear. For a heartbeat Jake stood frozen. For a lifetime he had told himself to stay out of trouble. This land was dangerous, deeds like this were not his concern. But something about her, the desperation in her gaze, the vulnerability, rooted him in place. The wind stood still for a moment, as if holding its breath. Then Jake slid from his saddle, boots crunching softly. He approached carefully, hands raised to show he meant no harm. The girl trembled again, but didn't cry out. "Easy now," he said softly, voice low. "No harm done yet." With slow, deliberate motion, he unfastened the crude rope from the tree. The girl swayed. Jake caught her under her arms before she crumpled. She started, startled, as if not used to kindness. She pulled away just slightly, brushing dusty hair from her face. Her dark eyes were wary, defiant. "Why?" she said, voice hoarse, barely above a whisper. Jake looked away, as though the question carried a weight too heavy even for wind. "Couldn't ride away," he said, almost to himself. "You're free now. If you want to go, go. But if you want to ride with me for a while, until safe, you're welcome." Her face hardened, as though she did not trust offers made by strangers. She didn't answer. Jake mounted his horse again, supporting her gently as she climbed up behind him. The animal jolted under her weight. She clung around his waist as he kicked off into the desert flat. They rode until the sun sank behind the mesas. At last they stopped near a stand of juniper and cottonwood trees, next to a rocky rise that offered some shelter from wind and prying eyes. Jake dismounted and set about building a small fire. He scavenged dry wood and kindling, coaxing a soft flame to life. The girl sat a short distance away, her knees drawn up, watching the fire crackle. Jake handed her a battered canteen. She drank gratefully, her hands trembling slightly. "Name's Jake," he said, leaning on a saddle. "You, Ayanna," she said after a pause. Jake nodded. "Where are you headed?" Ayanna studied the firelight dancing across her dirt-streaked face. "Back to my people," she said finally. "But I doubt I'll ever see them now." Silence settled between them, broken only by the whisper of the wind and the crackle of the fire. Jake watched her for a long moment. "Then you ride with me until maybe you find someone who knows where they are. Or, if you prefer, ride until you find new." Ayanna looked at him. For the first time the tension in her frame eased just a fraction. "Why do you do this?" she asked. "People on this land don't. They don't help each other much." Jake spoke softly, as though reciting a prayer to the desert. "Because someone once helped me. The kindness I got, it's debt I carry. Sometimes you ride the hard trail alone, and in that emptiness you can still feel when someone's in need." Ayanna nodded, letting the words settle like dust in twilight. That night the desert sky cracked open with stars. The Milky Way stretched overhead, luminous and eternal. A coyote yipped in the distance. Jake kept watch while Ayanna slept, leaning against his saddle, gun across his knees. Not for danger, but for guilt. Guilt over not helping sooner. Over every time he'd looked the other way. Over every innocent life lost to cruelty because he rode silent. The next morning they resumed their ride under high sun. Ayanna leaned forward against Jake, riding like a ghost leaning against a calm wind. For hours they traveled, until the flat desert gave way to rugged